And I can't say enough about, Josh Hart. You cannot say enough about Hartenstein, or how was Ian saying it last night?
Hartenstein, which is also how Mike Breen says it. Yeah,
right. He was doing the German thing.
Well, I think that's the way it's pronounced.
Hartenstein.
That's the way he would like it to be pronounced.
All right, so that's where we're going to pronounce it. So Hartenstein and Josh Hart, were relentless. And when Mitchell Robinson was on the court, he was relentless too, in terms of just keeping the ball alive, especially on the offensive glass. And then, this is your point guard. Your point guard is here for reasons like this last night. Now, they were having trouble with the zone defense of the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
But you're right. The Miami Heat have a culture that is set up there. And that, I don't care what anybody says. Ever since Pat Riley got down there, the big three and all this other crap. But they have always been competitive. And Ian was talking last night about the amount of guys that haven't been drafted that are on that team that are playing significant roles. And it was, it was dicey. It was tough. It was everything that you expect this series to be for the rest of the way, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at this point, I would be really surprised if one team just took off and made this a short series. It feels like a 7-game series. To me, it feels like a nail-biting series, and it was just so damn frustrating. You're right. That zone defense was giving them fits, especially in the second and third quarter. It was really until the last 6 minutes. I mean, that was the only time that the Knicks offense really took control. And every time the Knicks got close, whether within a point, or they tied the game, or they got up by a point. Boom, right back down the court. Miami hit a three, whether it was Caleb Martin or whether it was Max Strus or it was just whatever it was. There was always an answer from the Heat until the last 6 minutes. So regardless of how you got it done, you did get it done. But it just felt weird at the beginning of this game. Like the crowd wasn't into it. You get Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein into foul trouble right away. I was like, this thing is setting up to be a disaster.
Yeah.
But because you've got Jalen Brunson in that last 6 minutes, hitting those two big threes and doing everything else, there was no way he was losing that game.
A couple things about this game. There were a couple moments there at the end of the third quarter where R.J. Barrett had a chance to blow the lid off of the MSG, right? And he played well. He didn't play towards the end of the game. He played reasonably well, but he missed 2 3-pointers.
Yep.
That would have and he was wide open and just missed them. And that's the make or miss part of the league. The other thing too is Julius Randle, the inbound violation.
Yeah, the game should have been completely over at that point. And then of course, that's as sloppy as it gets when he steps over the line and then comes back.
There are things that he does in games where he just and a couple times you felt like, especially in the third quarter, where they went a little bit too much isolation again.
Yeah,
I just felt like I'm watching Julius Randle struggle to get into the paint and then jump up in the air and then try to find somebody that's open.
Right.
Like with no idea. And of course, Manuel quickly had one of those games that wasn't one of his better games, but that's who the Knicks are.
Yeah.
They're woefully inconsistent at times, but they won the game. It doesn't matter to me how they won it. All that matters to me is that they did win it, and that Thibodeau recognized that, Julius Randle and R.J. Barrett on the court in the fourth quarter was not going to work.
Yeah, and Julius, for the most part, was very, very good last night. And he walks this fine line between, being the aggressive leader that the Knicks need in crunch time and then doing stupid stuff.
Yes.
There's really, and it's a tightrope for him. And there was that one sequence where, the Knicks come back, they were down 6, they come back, take a 1-point lead, then get a stop. And the place is going nuts because it just feels like the Knicks are about to take the lead and keep it, which they eventually did. But there was back-to-back possessions where they got too wrapped up in the moment, and then Julius Randle on that first of those 2 possessions went down the court and just hucked up this 3 because he was feeling, man, if I could hit this, we end up taking a 4-point lead. This place is going to go absolutely crazy. And even the announce team, Ian Eagle was saying it too with Jim Jackson, that this place, everybody was already standing. They were ready to explode. Julius Randle felt that, and he took a stupid shot, within like 6 seconds of when the shot clock started. And then the same thing happened when they got another stop after that. There was one pass, R.J. Barrett hucks up a 3, and then he misses it. I'm like, damn it! It's like things like that you still You get really frustrated with them. And in those moments where and then what happened a little bit later, a couple minutes later, Jalen Brunson is the one who gets the ball and then hits the big three. So I just want Jalen Brunson always in those situations to have the ball in his hands and make the decisions.
Yeah, Josh Hart hit a big three, too. He also missed one, but he misses one, and he follows it up against the rebound.
Yeah, which was great.
I mean, that's why you got to love that guy, the way that guy plays.
And that was an N1, too.
Yes, exactly. That guy, the way that guy plays. The same thing with Hartenstein. Stein. Hartenstein.
Yes.
Make sure I get that right.
Yes.
Yeah, he's another one. They're relentless. But then again, I got to say, the Miami Heat are relentless,
Oh,
too.
yeah. No,
I mean, it is like they play defense, man.
Yeah.
They get in your face, and they play defense, and they are devoid of stars.
Well, when Jimmy Butler is off the court.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
But that's one star.
Yeah, no, I know.
The other guys are all good players, but man.
Bam's a guy who goes, and also, Tyler Hero's been a very good player for them, and you're not going to see him for this series. But, Bam Adebayo can be really, really good at times, too. But you're right. I mean, last night, especially that Gabe Vincent is such a pain in the ass. And I know he missed a couple of big shots when the Knicks were pulling away. But prior to that, I mean, the guy played 41 minutes. I think he played more than any of the rest of his teammates. And he's just one of those guys that annoys the hell out of you because he shouldn't be as good as he is.
You know what he is? He is like their version of Josh Hart.
Yeah.
That's how maybe a little bit better scorer, maybe. I don't know. But again, they are relentless. They have a culture. They do, Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra do amazing things with this team. And, I don't care. Like I said, I don't care how they won. Believe me, after going through what I just went through with the Rangers, I just want the team to win.
No, of course, but and
they showed I gotta say it was effort. You could see it. You know what? I felt like the referees let them play last night.
They did. Now there was a couple of calls that did end up going the Knicks' way.
The one that hit the basket.
All right. Yes,
that would have been a putback, and that would have been a layup by the Heat. And they said that it was a shot clock violation.
And it hit the rim.
It hit the rim.
There was no doubt about it that it hit the rim.
Yes.
And the other one where I wasn't really understanding of the rule, but to me, I really thought when they went back and reviewed it, was the foul, the Bam Adebayo running into Hartenstein, and then Jalen Brunson hitting the three. And that turned into a 4-point play where the foul was basically, really you had to look at where the whistle was and when the contact was made and at what point Jalen Brunson was releasing the ball or getting in his shooting motion. And that to me was very ambiguous. Eddie, please. Ambiguous, yes. Very ambiguous as to where, exactly when that was. And
you know what that is? That's called a brain lock.
There's a brain lock, yes, I know. A little brain lock. And when you're up in the middle of the night watching sports every single night, yes, this is what happens. So that right there, if I were on the other end of that, I would have been pissed off because think about that swing. You're talking about either an inbounds play or a 4-point play.
Yeah, look, that's...
And they were down 6 at that point.
You could say screw the Heat button was hit at that moment.
I kind of felt that way. And there were a couple of fouls down in that last 6 minutes that I thought were a little bit questionable. I'm just being fair about it. If I were a Miami Heat fan, I would have been annoyed at the way things went from an official standpoint at the end of the game.
But the NBA needs this series to go 7. It does. And by the way, both the NHL and the NBA playoffs, the first round playoffs, the ratings were up significantly for both leagues.
Yeah.
And it was good to see that in that Game 7. I'm trying to think which Game 7. The Florida Panther Boston Bruin Game 7 had like a 3.5 million people watching. So. And then there was the Golden State Sacramento Game 7.
Yeah, that
was like 9.5 million people watching.
broke a record, I think, for a first round series.
Yeah, for like the best series numbers like in 10 years.
Yeah, which is great.
You got stars playing, that's why.
And you're also going to get massive numbers for the two series, the Knicks and the Heat, the ones that you saw last night. Knicks, Heat, and Warriors, Lakers are going to do massive numbers because I think that this series to me feels like a bloody 7-game series where I do believe that the rest of the country is going to get into this series. I do believe that because of the type of basketball that's being played, the throwback basketball, the fact that the Knicks are back in and it's an interesting team, and obviously LeBron and Steph Curry and one of those two moving on is going to be huge. But yeah, this was This was awesome, though, man, to feel that, because I really didn't feel what I felt last night and in game one in that series against the Cavs, because the one game that they lost, they got blown out, the Knicks, in game two. And the rest of the games, they were basically dominant. I never really felt like they were challenged. And in game one, totally annoyed with the way things were going. And for 3.5 quarters last night, I was totally annoyed with the way things were going.
Neither team got away from each other. In other words, they were right there with each other the whole time. I mean, it was a contested basketball game from start to finish. And, it was interesting. They had Josh Hart mic'd up last night. And he's like, we got a 6-minute game. Let's go. I'm like, and that's really what it is in the NBA, especially when you have two teams that are so close to each other.
Right.
And one team in particular, the Heat, like ramping up the intensity. I mean, that was a slugfest last night. That was old Knick Heat fighting, kind of like, hand-to-hand combat under the board. I mean, under the basket. I mean, it was a very entertaining game from the standpoint that it was contested completely throughout the game.
Yes, and I wonder if Miami's going to look back and Jimmy Butler's going to look back, because he's going to play on Saturday. And they showed a video of him walking into the arena, and he wasn't walking with a limp like he was playing with a limp at the end of game one. And I wonder if the mentality was what Jerry and we were talking about yesterday, was, does Miami sit him in game two because they already stole one at the Garden in game one, and then you have a full 5 days off between game one and game three if Jimmy Butler doesn't play in game two, which he didn't, in order to get back to 100%. So I wonder, if this were a game 6 or 7, an elimination game, he probably would have played. And I wonder if they look back on that, because last night, you add an 80% or 75% Jimmy Butler on that court, Miami probably wins that game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he would have been shooting as well, because his ankle is not right. I mean, it's just not right. And it's amazing with these ankle injuries.
Yeah.
And they were talking again about it on the broadcast last night, because a couple guys went down and twisted their ankles. Josh Hart twisted his ankle.
Oh, Jalen Brunson re-aggravated his too.
Yeah, I know. So maybe this is good that they have 3 days off. It's not great for us as fans.
Yeah.
But it's good for them, because, man, I mean, every game, there's like 2 or 3 guys that are twisting ankles.
Yeah, that's it. In this series, of course, last night was a good night for ankles for the Knicks as Brunson and Randle played. And Julius Randle really, especially in this matchup and this team and how Miami has a tough time dealing with him, he's going to be a huge key in this. And I understand, without Julius Randle, the Heat win. Without Jimmy Butler, the Knicks win. Julius Randle comes back and the Knicks win. So clearly, you're going to need all hands on deck for this series and everybody as healthy as possible. But you could really tell that Julius on last night, in the moments that he was, is a big problem for Miami. So if he plays well, man, they're moving on. I mean, I feel more confident about that statement than anything else.
Well, the one thing Miami did not do last night to him that other teams have done to him is, as soon as he got the ball, they would go and double team him.
Yeah.
But, I think because of the presence of Jalen Brunson, that kind of limits them from doing that. Especially if Jalen Brunson has the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
And they can spread the floor out. And then when Julius finally gets the ball, it is a one-on-one situation. Where he really struggles is when teams go after him and they try to double him.
Yeah, there were a couple of things I want to give him credit for, too. There were a couple of calls that were questionable. 2 offensive fouls, one specifically on him, where I was like, man, really, they called that? And he did not do his normal, typical screaming, getting in the face of the ref stuff. He just put the ball on the floor and he walked the other way. And it was almost as if he was, not that he was agreeing with the calls, because there's no way he was agreeing with the calls. It was almost like this conscious effort, like, I'm not going to let that get to me in these big games. I really felt like it seemed like he was like, I'm putting the ball down and I'm going, and that's the end of that, because I'm not going to get him to change the call, and all that's going to happen is I'm going to get attacked.
And not getting attacked,
right? I mean, so I was really, except for that 1-3 when they could have gone up 4, as I mentioned, the fourth quarter. Other than that, where he got caught up in a moment, if he would have hit the shot, I would have been praising him probably. But I did not like that shot. Other than that, I felt great about Julius last night.
Oh, he had that misstep throwing the ball.
Well, it didn't end up costing him. We'd be all over his ass if it ended up costing them the game and they blew that lead in the last 30 seconds.
Can't do it.
Well, obviously, that was stupid, but. what are you going to do? That was sort of like the Keandre Miller turnover in the 5-1 game that you were talking about at the end, where you're like, it was a good game, but Keandre Miller did that. It didn't really cost you. So it's one of those things where you just move on, and thank God it wasn't a blown lead.
I think Aaron Rodgers is having a hell of a time here.
Yeah, it was great. And he was sitting next
every game. He's everywhere. He's with Sauce Gardner. He's like, front row.
Yeah, front row.
Thanks so much for watching the video.
Please like and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when we're dropping new content.